we await the president in the White House Rose Garden, Trump officials are telling congressional staffers that they are pulling out of the deal. That's the news as it stands right now, just before 3 p.m. Eastern time. Charles Payne is the host of Making Money on the Fox Business Network, and Chris Horner is the author of The Politically Incorrect Guide to Environmentalism and a senior fellow at the Competitive Enterprise Institute. Chris, our viewers will notice that you're at the White House. What was your role in these discussions about the climate agreement?
When the administration or the transition wanted advice, I gave it. And it seems that although there are many strong voices on the issue, both sides, the president's made a decision, and I believe we're going to be happy with it. He's keeping his promise.
What would make you happy with it, Chris?
Announcing withdrawal as promised. And remember, the president, as a candidate, didn't just promise it. He gave reasons, and those reasons haven't changed. And so he's announcing his withdrawal, as I understand it. But we'll see in a few minutes.
Sure.
And there are several ways to do it, but I believe he's going to approach it directly, which is newsworthy, it's refreshing, it's a politician keeping his promise, and finally on this particular issue, which can be so shrill, it's somebody standing up, taking the hit to show leadership isn't doing what people have been mowing you into, do what we insist, that's leadership. It's showing other people the way out. And frankly, thanks to litigation productions and so on, we know what the State Department says internally. This is killing Europe's economies. And the president's doing the right thing.
I want to get to Charles in just a moment to talk about the economy. But Chris, because you have some inside perspective on this, I want you to take our viewers behind the scenes. They've heard a variety of different reports on who wanted to stay in the deal. Some reports have suggested Ivanka had a strong voice on that perhaps Rex Tillerson did as well. What was your experience? How rich was the debate in this decision-making process?
Well, it's my understanding it was pitched at times, but always respectful, and it stuck generally to the merits, and we prevailed, what I'll call our side, Exit, prevailed on the merits in all of the meetings I'm aware of. And so Remain pushed to what they call the public perception battle, which is the pressure campaign you've been seeing, which if you stayed in Paris would become a way of life, spiking every 5 years. So the Exit people, us, we had the arguments on our side. This is harmful. The president was right. He made a promise. He's keeping it. He's going to show people the way out. And Remain won't give up, but people need to support this and be refreshed that a politician kept his word. So in the face of, I have to tell you, very strenuous internal debate.
A strenuous internal debate. That's interesting. One of the things we're going to be watching for in the language as we watch different staffers gather here. There's Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, Wilbur Ross, Commerce Secretary as well. And all of those, by the way, the economy very big in this. Charles Payne, of course, with us on set as well. Charles, one of the things we're going to be watching for is whether or not we pull out of this agreement completely. That's what congressional staffers are being told. As far as the impact on the U.S. economy, how do you see it?
Oh, it's pretty clear that this was an economic disaster, without a doubt, Jenna. From the amount of money that we had to pour into this to curbing what I'm calling the fracking miracle. Unconventional discovery of oil and gas has been just a success out of this world, creating millions of jobs, creating billions of dollars worth of construction projects. And this is something that is going to continue for us for the next couple of decades.
You know, we're seeing numbers, and I'm sure our viewers have seen this quite a bit. This is from the Heritage Foundation about the numbers of jobs lost in the hundreds of thousands, income lost for a family of 4. One of the numbers that they concentrate on, Charles, is a $2.5 trillion loss in GDP. Now, I was looking to see who disagrees with the Heritage Foundation, and some say, listen, these numbers seem really big, but it's over a 20-year period. It's really not that big. So, hey, it was worth just staying in for leadership's sake because the number looks big, but when you look at it out, aggregated out over 20 years, not that big. What do you say to that?
A couple of trillion is big over 1 year, 2 years, or between now and 2035. It's a huge, gargantuan number. Also, one number I don't think I saw up there was a 20% increase in electricity, which hurts everybody. It's one of those things that is incendiary. But overall, you know, what we're talking about is just a poorly crafted deal. I think Chris hit it right on the head. Maybe this is something, if it's been vigorously debated within the White House, they go back to and revisit, but in a way that puts, and I don't want to say America first, but common sense first, to be quite frank with you. This is wealth redistribution. And by the way, not to poor countries. Poor countries, in my mind, were being bribed to stay poor. This was just sort of India and China taking take off. You can have it your way over between now and 2030, and in America, you take a back seat.
Now, it's interesting you mentioned that. The camera just moved off two individuals, the National Security Advisor to the President and the top economic advisor. Those two individuals penned an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal talking about what does American leadership look like in light of the President's trip to Europe, and reports, again, bringing those stories together, were that he had discussions about this climate agreement while in Europe. Chris, I want to talk to you a little bit about that philosophy, because the philosophy mapped out in this Wall Street Journal op-ed about American leadership talked about not looking at the world as a global community, but looking at it as a way, as competitive. So a totally different paradigm than the previous administration. What would American leadership look like on this specific issue if we're not in the agreement?
Well, showing people like the Poles, the Czechs, others who have seen the harm that this is causing, and Europe just finds that it's created a mess for itself and thinks the only fair response for us is to join in their economic suicide pact. So what leadership looks like is saying, leadership doesn't mean doing what you insist we do, as has been the case. Leadership is showing you that you can, we actually, if this is critical to people, we reduce emissions without killing jobs. And by the way, they have an epidemic of seniors and the poor dying under what they call fuel poverty in England, energy poverty. Charles and I have spoken about this in the tens of thousands, coincident with these policies taking root. Leadership is saying we can grow the economy. This treaty does not have a projected climate impact. U.S. withdrawal, therefore, does not have a projected climate impact. It means being serious about this, not cruel, futile gestures in the name of something nobody actually claims it would impact.
I'm curious, Charles, your thoughts, though, on where, again, the U.S. government can lead or should lead on this particular issue. What does that look like in 2017?
It looks like what we've been doing. In 1990, America was 24% of the world's pollution. By 2015, 2016, we were just 16%. That's the fracking miracle, that's natural gas, that's technology. That's allowing free markets to tackle a problem or make something better. So we've actually led the way on this in a way that other countries can duplicate. China would love to have our fracking technology. That's something, in fact, they've discussed with the White House. So we're already leading on this, and we don't have to be driven by guilt or a sense of wealth redistribution, because social justice supersedes economics.
Steve Bannon,
can I make a point, Jenna? This is very important.
One moment, Steve Bannon there, central to this conversation. Chris, I only have about 20 seconds here, but go ahead, please.
Okay, the UN has a chief climate economist. His name's Otmar Edenhofer, and he said, he acknowledged this has very little to do with the environment. We de facto redistribute the world's wealth through climate policy. The EU climate minister, Margot Wallström, said it's about leveling the playing field. It's not about the climate. Wealthier is healthier, wealthier is cleaner, wealthier is more resilient. The U.S. is going to continue showing leadership, and this is an excellent step along that path.
We'll be watching for the comments.